I didn't retain much from those early years, but the aroma of Evelyn Morse's perfume was etched in my memory. Vanilla intertwined with a floral note that seemed to permeate everything she touched. That scent now haunted my cramped Las Vegas apartment, 3 months after I'd laid her to rest. It mingled with the stale coffee and the mountain of unpaid bills scattered across my kitchen table, like paper headstones marking the demise of my financial stability. The casino's neon across the street pulsed through the cracked blinds, painting red shadows that danced across Evelyn Morse's photo on the shelf. Her smile was a blade twisting in my gut, so bright and full of trust, captured just before the needle found its mark, before the heroine dragged her under for the last time, before I'd been too consumed chasing IT contracts to pull her back from the edge, too busy debugging code and meeting deadlines to notice the dark constellations of track marks blooming on her arms, mapping her descent into hell. I wasn't there when she needed me most. The thought circled like a vulture, picking at the guilt that had festered inside me since the funeral, where I'd stood alone beside her casket, watching them lower the only family I had left into the unforgiving Nevada earth. Evelyn Morse had called that night. I remember the missed calls flashing on my phone while I debugged code for another faceless client. Each unanswered ring another nail in the coffin of my brotherly duties. By morning, she was gone, found blue-lipped and cold in a downtown alley, the needle still dangling from her arm. My laptop pinged from its precarious perch atop a stack of overdue bills, probably another threatening notice, or another rejection from the temp agencies that had stopped returning my calls weeks ago. The electric company had already issued 2 final warnings, their red-lettered threats growing more aggressive with each passing day. My landlord's patience wore thinner each time I slipped another excuse under his door instead of rent money. But the subject line snagged my attention, cutting through my despair like a spotlight. Highway security position, immediate start, Bunker 17, Nevada. Desperation made me click, my finger trembling against the trackpad. Seeking night security monitor for remote facility. $2,000 per week, minimal qualifications required. Must follow 3 simple rules. 1. Don't look at the figure on the cameras. 2. Don't leave the monitoring room after midnight. 3. Don't speak to the mirror. Interested parties respond immediately. No background checks required. Cash payment weekly. 3 rules, simple enough. Yet they sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with my broken air conditioner, which wheezed and rattled in the corner like a dying beast. The money, though, that was tangible enough to make my heart pound. $2,000 a week would clear my debts, silence the vultures circling my credit score, and maybe let me sleep without Evelyn Morse's ghost whispering accusations in my dreams about how I'd failed her when she needed me most. The rules were odd, unsettling in their precision, but I'd worked stranger gigs. Tech support had taught me that every job came with its own peculiar requirements, its own unspoken protocols. Don't look at the figure, don't leave the room, don't speak to the mirror. I could follow rules. I was good at following rules. I typed my response before common sense could intervene, my fingers moving with the desperate efficiency of a drowning man clutching at driftwood. The reply arrived within minutes, so swiftly it made me wonder if someone had been sitting at their computer, preying on desperate souls like me. An address in the Nevada desert, a start date of tonight, and a contact named Harris who'd meet me there. No background check, no interview, no questions asked, just coordinates that led to nowhere on the map and a warning to bring food for 3 days because the nearest town was hours away. I packed light. Some clothes, instant noodles, bottled water, and Evelyn Morse's photo, because I couldn't bear to leave her behind again. The drive took 4 hours through a desert that stretched like cracked skin under the afternoon sun. Endless miles of nothing but scrub brush and heat shimmer that made the horizon ripple with phantom shapes. Sand hissed against my windshield like whispers from the dead, and the radio picked up nothing but static that sounded disturbingly like voices speaking in languages I didn't recognize. I'd left Las Vegas feeling desperate. I arrived feeling watched, as if the desert itself had eyes tracking my progress towards whatever awaited at those coordinates. Bunker 17 squatted in the wasteland like a concrete tumor, its walls streaked with rust stains that resembled dried blood in the fading light. The structure seemed to rise from the earth itself, as if it had grown there rather than been built, a malignant growth on the landscape that hurt to look at. Barbed wire crowned a chain-link fence that enclosed nothing but empty desert, and the bunker's single entrance, a steel door set into the earth, was like a mouth waiting to swallow me whole. Harris waited by the gate, a grizzled man in his 60s whose weathered face suggested he'd witnessed things that had aged him beyond his years, leaving permanent shadows in his eyes. His gray hair was unkempt, his clothes rumpled as if he'd slept in them, and when he shook my hand, his grip felt like old leather wrapped around bones that had forgotten how to be warm. There was something hollow about him, something that reminded me of Evelyn Morse in her final days, when the drugs had consumed everything that made her who she was. "You Mark Hensley?" His voice rasped with the sound of too many cigarettes and too many secrets swallowed down with cheap whiskey. "Mark, yeah. Thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Harris." He studied me with those gray eyes that seemed to penetrate right through me, and I felt like a specimen under glass. Ethan Caldwell thought. Something to be examined and catalogued before being fed to whatever lurked in the bunker's depths. "You read the rules?" "3 of them, simple enough." Mark Hensley almost smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes, and somehow, it made his face look even more haunted than before. "That's what they all say. Follow me." The bunker's interior was a maze of concrete corridors that sweated condensation and reeked of mildew, mixed with something else, something organic and rotten that made Ethan's stomach turn. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects, casting sickly shadows that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them, shifting and writhing as if they had lives of their own. Their footsteps echoed in the hollow space, each sound swallowed by the oppressive darkness that pressed in from all sides like a living thing. "Cold War relic," Harris explained as they walked deeper into the earth, his voice taking on a hollow quality in the cramped space. "Built to monitor Soviet communications back in the 60s, decommissioned in '89 when the wall came down, but the equipment still works. Government sold it cheap to a private company that uses it for research. Your job's simple. Watch the cameras, log anything unusual, and stick to the rules. The rules aren't suggestions, kid. They're the only thing standing between you and what's down here." "What kind of unusual?" Ethan Caldwell asked, though part of him already knew he didn't want the answer. Mark Hensley stopped at a steel door marked "Monitoring" in faded stenciled letters and turned those gray eyes on Ethan again. And Ethan saw something there that might have been pity. The kind that'll make you glad you followed the rules. The kind that'll make you understand why the last 3 guys quit without collecting their final paychecks. The monitoring room was cramped and stuffy, filled with banks of CRT monitors that hummed like a hive of electronic bees working overtime. 24 screens showed corridors, empty rooms, and endless concrete passages bathed in the blue glow of emergency lighting that made everything look underwater and dead. A logbook sat open on the desk, its pages yellowed and filled with entries in different handwriting. Previous guards, Ethan assumed, though he wondered why they'd all left and why Harris looked so haunted when he talked about them. "Cameras run on automatic rotation every 30 seconds, Harris said, handing Ethan a key card that felt warm against his palm and a thermos of coffee that smelled like burnt tar mixed with something metallic. "Log anything you see that doesn't belong. Don't investigate, don't leave this room after midnight, and remember the rules, especially the first one. Whatever you see on those screens after dark, don't look directly at it, don't acknowledge it, don't give it your attention." He pointed to a door at the far end of the room, slightly ajar, revealing darkness beyond that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. A draft came from that direction, carrying the smell of old stone and something else, something that reminded Ethan of Evelyn Morse's perfume but wrong, corrupted. "Basement access. That's where it is, the mirror. Don't go down there, don't talk to it, don't even look at it if you can help it. It knows when you're watching." "Why not? What's down there?" Harris was already backing toward the exit, his face pale in the monitor's glow, and Ethan could see his hands shaking slightly as he reached for the door handle. "Because some things are better left sleeping, kid. Some things should stay buried. Your shift starts now. I'll be back at dawn if you last that long." The steel door clanged shut with a finality that made Ethan's stomach drop, leaving him alone with the humming monitors and the weight of concrete pressing down from above like the lid of a tomb. Ethan settled into the worn chair and tried to shake the feeling that he'd just made a terrible mistake, that he'd traded his soul for $2,000 and a chance to escape his guilt over Evelyn Morse. The cameras showed empty corridors that stretched like arteries through the bunker's concrete heart, each passage identical to the last in its sterile desolation. Most were labeled with numbers and letters: Camera 3, Camera 12, Camera 15, but a few showed areas that seemed somehow different, older, as if they'd been carved from different stone altogether. The basement cameras were dark, their feeds showing only static that writhed like living things trapped behind glass. Time crawled. Ethan logged routine maintenance checks, the occasional flicker of lights, the way shadows seemed to shift when the cameras switched angles automatically every 30 seconds. Evelyn Morse's photo stared at him from his wallet, and he found himself talking to her, sometimes apologizing for things he couldn't change, confessing sins she'd never hear. "I should have been there," Ethan Caldwell whispered to the empty room, his voice sounding strange and hollow in the electronic hum. "Should have seen the signs. Should have saved you instead of chasing another paycheck." The monitors hummed their electronic lullaby, and Ethan tried not to think about the 3 rules or the way Harris's eyes had looked when he'd mentioned the mirror, like a man who'd seen his own death and lived to regret it. Midnight came like a held breath. The bunker's atmosphere changed, thickened somehow, as if the air itself had grown heavier with unspoken dread and ancient malevolence. The fluorescence dimmed without warning, and the monitor's glow took on an almost spectral quality that made Ethan's skin crawl. He stayed in his chair, remembering Rule 2, and watched the screens with growing unease that crawled up his spine like cold fingers searching for purchase. Camera 12 showed Corridor C, empty as always until a shadow moved across the far end, just a flicker, there and gone like smoke, but it made his heart skip several beats and his palms grow damp with sudden sweat. Ethan leaned forward instinctively, then caught himself. Rule 1. Don't look directly at the figure on the cameras. But the damage was done. He'd already seen it. Tall, impossibly thin, it stood at the very edge of Camera 12's range, like a specter patiently awaiting acknowledgement. Forcing himself to break the gaze, Ethan scanned the other monitors, his eyes pulled back to Camera 12 against his will. The shadow was gone, but he could have sworn the corridor now possessed a different quality, a palpable darkness, as if the thing's presence had stained the very fabric of reality. A door creaked somewhere deep within the bunker, the sound amplified by the intercom system, echoing like a groan emanating from the Earth's core. Camera 3 focused on the entrance to the basement stairs, and Ethan watched with growing dread as the steel door swung slowly open on protesting hinges, revealing a darkness beyond that seemed to throb with malevolent intent. The shadows down there moved wrong, flowing like a liquid darkness that defied the laws of physics, stinging his eyes just from observation. Abruptly, the door slammed shut with a clang that reverberated through the concrete walls, causing the monitors to flicker momentarily. Ethan's hands shook as he logged the incident, fully aware that he couldn't articulate what he'd witnessed, or why it filled him with such profound disquiet that his stomach knotted and his throat went dry. Just doors opening and closing, just shadows and tricks of the light, nothing that violated any established protocol, nothing that should have made his skin crawl the way it did, as if insects were actively burrowing beneath his flesh. The hours crawled by, each minute stretching into an eternity, while the monitors hummed their constant electronic song and the bunker's presence weighed on his consciousness like an unbearable burden. He checked his watch obsessively. 2:15 a.m., 2:30 a.m., 2:45 a.m. Each glance at the glowing digits felt like counting down to his own execution. The intercom crackled at precisely 3 o'clock in the morning. The whisper was soft, barely audible above the static, but it froze the blood in his veins and raised every hair on his body. His finger hovered over the response button, trembling as the voice receded back into an electronic silence that felt somehow more menacing than the whisper itself. Dawn couldn't arrive quickly enough, but when it finally filtered through the bunker's narrow ventilation slits, bringing a weak light to dispel the monitor's electronic glow, Ethan felt no sense of relief. The whisper, his name spoken in that soft, impossible voice, had burrowed into his skull like a parasite, echoing through the corridors of his mind long after the intercom had fallen silent. Mark Hensley returned at 7 sharp, his gray eyes taking in Ethan's haggard appearance with a hint of pity. The stubble on his jaw felt like sandpaper, and his hands continued to tremble from too much coffee and too little sleep. Every shadow in the monitoring room seemed to hold lingering memories of that whisper, that single word that had frozen his blood. "Rough night?" he inquired, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer. "Just some unusual activity," Ethan replied, consulting the logbook where he dutifully recorded the shadow on camera 12, the door movement on camera 3, and the whisper at 3 a.m. His handwriting appeared shaky, almost desperate, like the scrawling of a man teetering on the edge of sanity. Mark Hensley read his entries without comment, his weathered fingers tracing the words as if they contained secrets beyond Ethan's comprehension. When he looked up, those gray eyes held depths Ethan wanted no part of exploring. "The first night's always the hardest," he said finally. "You get used to it." "Used to what?" But Mark Hensley was already turning away, dismissing him with a wave that felt more like a curse than a goodbye. "Get some rest, Ethan. You'll need it." The drive back to Las Vegas felt different in the daylight. The desert's vastness seemed less malevolent, more indifferent, as if the bunker's influence couldn't extend beyond its concrete walls. But Evelyn Morse's photo on his dashboard caught the morning sun, and her smile reminded him of another smile, an impossible, fleeting one, glimpsed in the static of camera 12. His apartment greeted him with its familiar chaos of unpaid bills and stale air. But even here, surrounded by the detritus of his ordinary existence, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him home. The silence felt different, heavier, pregnant with unspoken threats. He showered, attempting to wash away the bunker's lingering scent of mildew and concrete. But the water turned cold after 5 minutes, and he stood shivering in his cramped bathroom, staring at his reflection in the cracked mirror. For just a moment, in the foggy glass, he thought he saw someone else looking back. Sleep came in fragments, haunted by dreams of endless corridors and flickering monitors. Evelyn Morse appeared in those dreams, but distorted somehow, her eyes too dark, her smile too wide. She spoke his name in that whisper from the intercom, and he woke with her perfume, vanilla and something floral, thick in his nostrils despite the fact that she'd been dead for 3 months. The second night arrived like a held breath. Ethan returned to Bunker 17 as the sun died behind the mountains, painting the desert the color of dried blood. The structure seemed to crouch lower in the sand, as if burrowing deeper into the earth with each passing hour. Mark Hensley met him at the gate again, but this time his greeting was perfunctory, distracted. He handed Ethan the key card and thermos without making eye contact. "Remember the rules," he said, and something in his voice, urgency, perhaps, or fear, made Ethan's stomach clench. The monitoring room felt smaller somehow, the walls pressing closer, the air thicker with the weight of concrete and whatever else lurked in the bunker's depths. The monitors hummed their electronic song, 24 screens showing empty corridors bathed in blue emergency lighting that made everything look underwater. Ethan Caldwell settled into the worn chair, trying to ignore the way the basement door seemed to yawn wider tonight, revealing a deeper, more palpable darkness beyond. The rules echoed in his mind, a chilling mantra. Don't look at the figure on the cameras. Don't leave the monitoring room after midnight. Don't speak to the mirror. Simple rules, easy enough to follow, he told himself. But time, tonight, was a viscous, crawling thing. He logged routine maintenance checks, the nervous flicker of lights, the automatic rotation of cameras every 30 seconds. Evelyn Morse's photo sat propped against his thermos, and he found himself talking to her again, whispering confessions he'd never voiced while she was alive. "I should have answered your calls, Evelyn," he murmured to her frozen smile. "Should have known you were in trouble. Should have saved you from yourself." The monitors continued their cold, electronic hum, indifferent to his gnawing guilt. Midnight fell like a suffocating curtain. The bunker's atmosphere seemed to thicken, the very air growing heavy with a palpable, malevolent intent. The fluorescence dimmed without warning, casting the monitor's glow in that spectral, unsettling quality he'd noticed the night before. His hands instinctively gripped the armrests of his chair, lifelines in the encroaching darkness, as he forced himself to watch the screens, to meticulously document whatever fresh horror the night would unleash. Camera 15 showed Corridor D, a passage he'd barely registered during his previous shift. Empty as always, just bare concrete walls streaked with dampness and emergency lighting that painted everything in shades of blue despair. Then, at precisely 1 a.m., something moved. The figure stood at the far end of the corridor, like a specter coalescing into form, impossibly tall and thin, its limbs grotesquely elongated beyond human proportion. It possessed no eyes, only hollow sockets that seemed to drink in the camera's meager light, and its hands ended in claws that gleamed like polished bone. The first rule seared itself into his consciousness. Don't look at the figure on the cameras. But he was already looking, transfixed. "What's that?" he muttered, the words escaping before he could restrain them. The screen instantly dissolved into static, a shrieking white noise that sounded disturbingly like a chorus of screams. When the image cleared, the figure was gone from Corridor D, but Camera 10 showed something that made Ethan's heart stutter and nearly stop. The Wraith stood closer now in Corridor A, its eyeless face tilted as if it could somehow sense his gaze through the electronic lens. It knew he was watching. A scratching sound echoed through the bunker's concrete walls, the sound of claws dragging across the surface with a deliberate, predatory patience. The noise seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere, a symphony of malice that made his skin crawl and his teeth ache with phantom pain. Ethan grabbed the chair and jammed it under the monitoring room's door handle, his hands shaking so violently he could barely maintain his grip on the plastic arms. Camera 3 showed the corridor directly outside his door, and the Wraith was there, its claws probing the steel frame like a surgeon exploring a festering wound. Each scratch sent vibrations through the metal that he could feel in his very bones, a rhythmic scraping that seemed to spell out his name in some ancient, unspeakable language. The intercom crackled to life, shattering the oppressive silence. "Ethan?" Evelyn's voice, sweet as vanilla perfume, soft as silk against his ears, yet tainted with something profoundly wrong, something that made his stomach churn even as his heart leaped with an impossible, desperate hope. Ethan opened the door. The third rule screamed in his mind, "Don't speak to the mirror." But this wasn't the mirror, this was the intercom, and Evelyn was calling his name, pleading for help, begging him to be released from whatever hell she'd been trapped in since her overdose. "Ethan, please, I'm so cold." His finger hovered over the intercom button, trembling with the accumulated weight of 3 months' worth of guilt and unbearable longing. The voice was perfect, every inflection, every breath precisely as he remembered from their shared childhood, when she'd call his name through the thin wall of their bedroom, afraid of the dark and needing her big brother to chase away the monsters. But Evelyn Morse was dead. He'd watched them lower her into the unforgiving ground, had felt the harsh Nevada earth crumble between his fingers as he'd thrown the first handful of dirt onto her casket. The scratching abruptly stopped. Camera 3 showed an empty corridor, but he could feel the Wraith's presence like a crushing weight on his chest, pressing down with the full force of every mistake he'd ever made. The intercom fell silent, leaving only the relentless electronic hum of the monitors and the thunderous pounding of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. He clutched his hands over his ears and endured the remainder of the night in suffocating silence, watching the screens through tear-filled eyes that blurred the images into abstract patterns of light and shadow. Every few minutes, he thought he caught glimpses of movement, a fleeting flicker here, an ominous shadow there, but he forced himself to look away, to cling to the rules that stood between him and whatever unspeakable horror stalked the bunker's lightless depths. Dawn arrived like a hesitant mercy. Harris found him slumped in the chair, utterly exhausted and hollowed out, staring blankly at monitors that showed nothing but empty corridors. He read Ethan's log entries, Wraith sighting on camera 15, scratching at door, voice through intercom, with the same chilling, clinical detachment he'd displayed the previous morning. "You're learning," he said, which offered little of the comfort Ethan desperately craved. The drive home felt like fleeing the scene of a terrible crime. He kept compulsively checking his rearview mirror, half expecting to see that eyeless face reflected in the glass, but the road behind him remained stubbornly empty. It wasn't until he'd parked outside his apartment building that he finally noticed the mark on his forearm. It was small at first, no larger than a thumbprint, but unmistakably claw-shaped, as if something with razor-sharp talons had gripped his arm and left its indelible signature in his flesh. The skin surrounding it was unnaturally pale and cold to the touch, like frostbite in reverse, and when he tentatively pressed against it, the mark pulsed with a faint, disturbing rhythm that echoed his own frantic heartbeat. He stared at it in growing dread. I stood before my bathroom mirror, rotating my arm under the harsh fluorescent light, desperately trying to rationalize the mark as a mere scratch. A coincidence? Anything but the chilling truth I already knew. The wraith had branded me, claimed me, bound me to its will in a way I couldn't fathom, yet instinctively feared. In the glass's cold reflection, for a fleeting moment, I glimpsed an eyeless face lurking behind my own. Then it vanished, leaving only my pale, terrified reflection staring back, but with Clara's eyes. The mark throbbed again, a cold, deliberate pulse, and I knew with a terrible certainty that I was no longer alone after leaving the bunker. Something was watching back. The whispers followed me home, slithering into the cracks of my sanity. "Mark, I'm here." The voice, like insidious smoke, seeped through the cracked walls of my apartment, soft and achingly familiar, carrying the faint vanilla scent of Clara's perfume, a cruel reminder of her death 3 months prior. I slumped onto my threadbare couch, fixated on the mark etched onto my forearm, the wraith's chilling signature. What had begun as a small, claw-shaped impression now spread like black frost up my arm, delicate veins of darkness branching beneath my skin in patterns that were painful to behold directly. The whispers assaulted me at all hours, during my fitful attempts at sleep, as I brewed instant coffee with trembling hands, when I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror and questioned if the pale, hollow-eyed man staring back was still me. Clara's voice, sweet and pleading, incessantly calling my name, begging me to return to the bunker, to speak with her. But Clara was dead. I'd held her cold hand at the morgue, watched them lower her casket into the unyielding Nevada earth. Whatever spoke with her voice was something else, something that had learned her inflections from my own guilt and twisted them into a horrifying trap. My phone had been ringing for hours before I finally answered, bracing myself for another bill collector or an automated threat regarding my overdue rent. Instead, a gravelly voice I didn't recognize spoke my name with the weary resignation of a man who'd witnessed too much. "Mark Hensley? Yeah. Who's this?" "Ethan Caldwell. We need to talk." The name was unfamiliar, yet something in his tone sent a cold fist clenching around my stomach. "About what?" "About Bunker 17. About what you saw on those cameras. You looked at it, didn't you?" My blood ran cold. Harris must have given him my number, although Harris's own phone had been going straight to voicemail for days. "I don't know what you're talking about." Ethan's laugh was as bitter and dry as the desert wind. "The mark on your arm says otherwise. Meet me at Mel's Diner on Highway 95, 30 miles out from Vegas, in 1 hour. Come alone, and bring whatever Harris left you." The line went dead before I could ask how he knew about the mark. I found the logbook entry that evening, slipped into my bag like a guilty secret. The paper was yellowed and brittle, covered in Harris's cramped handwriting, and it recounted a story I desperately wished I'd never learned. Dr. Evelyn Morse, 1963, Government Psychic Research Project, died attempting to summon spirits through obsidian mirror in Bunker 17's ritual chamber. Mirror cursed, bound her soul to the bunker. Don't speak to it, don't acknowledge it, don't give it what it wants. The wraith feeds on guilt, on attention, on the voices of the living. Every word spoken to the mirror makes it stronger. Every acknowledgement gives it more power over reality. The basement is sealed for a reason. If you looked at it on the cameras, you're marked. If you spoke to it, you're lost. The only way out is to destroy the mirror, but that means going down to where it lives. My hands trembled as I read the entry 3 times, committing every word to memory. Harris had known what would happen, had known the job posting would attract desperate people like me, who couldn't afford to refuse. He'd left me breadcrumbs, clues to navigate the horror he'd thrust me into. But why? The drive to Mel's diner took me through a desert that seemed different in the daylight, less malevolent, more indifferent, as if the bunker's influence couldn't extend beyond its concrete confines. But the mark on my arm pulsed with each mile, a rhythm mirroring my frantic heartbeat, and Clara's whispers drifted through my car speakers even with the radio turned off. "Mark, come back to me. I'm waiting." Mel's diner squatted beside the highway like a grease-stained monument to bygone days, its neon sign flickering erratically in the afternoon sun. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps over warped linoleum and cracked vinyl booths that had witnessed decades of desert travelers seeking refuge from the endless nothingness outside. Ethan Caldwell sat in a corner booth, and I immediately recognized him as a man haunted by survival. He was perhaps 40, with graying hair and eyes the color of weathered concrete, wearing clothes that suggested he'd been sleeping rough for weeks. His hands were crisscrossed with scars, thin white lines that bore an unsettling resemblance to the marks spreading up my arm. "You look like hell," he said as I slid into the booth across from him. "You're not exactly a picture of health yourself." He offered a humorless smile and gestured towards my forearm. "Show me." I rolled up my sleeve, revealing the branching network of dark veins that had visibly intensified since morning. They pulsed faintly under the diner's harsh lighting, and where they touched, my skin felt as cold as winter stone. "Christ," Ethan muttered, his voice laced with dread. "It's spreading fast. How long since you looked at her?" "2 nights ago." "What is it?" Ethan signaled the waitress, a woman who looked as though she'd rather be anywhere else, and ordered coffee. He then leaned across the table, his voice low and urgent, with the intensity of a man confessing his deepest sins. Her name was Dr. Evelyn Morse, and she was brilliant, the kind of scientist who thought she could punch holes in reality and not worry about what might crawl through. Ethan Caldwell stirred sugar into his coffee, his hands exhibiting a slight tremor. Government hired Evelyn Morse back in '63 to research psychic phenomena, gave her Bunker 17 as a laboratory. He paused, the spoon clinking softly against the ceramic. "She found something down there, an obsidian mirror, black as midnight, carved with symbols that just hurt to look at. Said it was a window between worlds, a way to speak with the dead. The government, of course, loved it, thought they could use it to contact enemy spies who died, extract secrets from beyond the grave." "What happened?" I asked, the question hanging in the air. "What always happens when you poke something that should be left alone," Ethan replied grimly. "Evelyn Morse tried to control the mirror, to bind spirits to her will. Instead, she bound herself to it. The experiment went wrong. Explosion in the ritual chamber killed her and 3 assistants. But death wasn't the end for Evelyn. The mirror caught her soul, twisted it, turned her into something hungry and hollow. The coffee tasted like ashes in my mouth. The Wraith, she's been trapped in that bunker for 60 years, feeding on guilt and attention, growing stronger every time someone breaks the rules. The monitoring security position is bait, Mark Hensley. They need desperate people with enough regret to make her interested. You looked at her, gave her your attention, and now she's marked you as hers. Harris knew this would happen," I stated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Ethan's laugh echoed mine, equally bitter. "Harris is a recruiter. He finds people like us, people with nothing left to lose, and throws them to Evelyn Morse like meat to a wolf. Some last longer than others. Most don't make it past the first week." "Then why are you helping me?" I asked, searching his eyes for an answer. He rolled up his own sleeves, revealing scars that covered both arms like a road map of survival. "Because I was you once, 3 years ago, desperate for work, willing to take any job that paid cash. I looked at her on camera 8, spoke to the mirror when she used my dead mother's voice. Should have died down there, but I got lucky, found a way to weaken her enough to escape." "How?" I pressed. "Broke the rules in reverse. She feeds on attention, on voices, on acknowledgement. Take those away and she starves. The mirror is her anchor to the physical world. Destroy it, and she'll be trapped between dimensions, powerless." My heart hammered against my ribs. "You want me to go back?" "The basement keycard is in my truck. Stole it when I escaped. Two of us might have a chance. Alone, you're already dead. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. She's marked you, Mark Hensley. The veins, the whispers, that's her claiming process. In another day or two, you'll be completely under her control. Just another voice she can use to lure the next victim. I stared at the spreading darkness on my arm, feeling the cold tendrils wrap around my bones like ice. Clara's voice whispered through the diner's speakers, so soft only I could hear. Mark Hensley, don't listen to him. Come home to me. What about Harris? Ethan Caldwell's expression darkened. Harris won't help you. He's too deep in their pockets, too invested in the cycle. They pay him well to keep feeding Evelyn Morse fresh victims. As far as he's concerned, you're already dead. The waitress refilled our coffee with practiced disinterest, and I found myself studying Ethan Caldwell's scars, counting the white lines that crisscrossed his forearms like tally marks. How many rules had he broken? How many times had Evelyn Morse's claws found him before he'd escaped? Why help me at all? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Because I lost friends down there, good people who trusted me to keep them safe. His voice dropped to a whisper. I can't save them, but maybe I can save you. The drive back to Bunker 17 felt like driving to my own execution. Evening painted the desert the color of dried blood, and the horizon shimmered with heat that made everything look underwater. Ethan Caldwell followed in his battered truck, the basement key card a weight in my pocket that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. The bunker looked smaller somehow, as if it were sinking deeper into the earth with each passing hour. The barbed wire fence seemed more tarnished, the concrete walls more stained with rust that looked disturbingly like old blood. Even the desert around it felt wrong, too quiet, too empty, as if even the snakes and scorpions knew to avoid this place. Harris was nowhere to be seen. The monitoring room welcomed me back with its familiar chorus of humming electronics and flickering screens. But something had changed in my absence. The air felt thicker, more oppressive, and the basement door at the far end of the room gaped wider than before, revealing stairs that descended into darkness absolute. I settled into the worn chair and tried to ignore the way the darkness seemed to watch me back. The monitors showed empty corridors, but I could feel Evelyn Morse's presence like a weight on my chest, pressing down with the force of 6 decades worth of hunger and rage. At exactly midnight, she appeared on camera 5. Clara stood in corridor B, her back to the camera, wearing the yellow sundress I'd buried her in. Her hair was longer than I remembered, darker, and when she turned to face the lens, her eyes were black holes that seemed to drink in the camera's light. She smiled Clara's smile, but wrong somehow, too wide, showing teeth that gleamed like polished bone in the emergency lighting. When she raised her hand to wave, I saw the needle marks on her arms, dark punctures that wept black fluid down her pale skin. Mark Hensley, she mouthed, though no sound came through the speakers. Come down to me. The mark on my arm burned like ice, and I gripped the armrests of my chair until my knuckles went white. The third rule echoed in my mind. Don't speak to the mirror. But this wasn't the mirror. This was the cameras, and Clara was beckoning me toward the basement stairs, pointing with one pale finger at the door that led to Evelyn Morse's lair. I'm waiting. Clara's mouth formed the words, a silent promise of something terrible. I've been waiting so long. A scratching sound intensified, echoing through the concrete walls, like claws dragging in patterns that seemed to etch my name in some ancient, unholy language. The noise was everywhere and nowhere, vibrating through the very skeleton of the bunker until the whole structure pulsed with a malevolent life of its own. Then Evelyn Morse's voice, sweet as vanilla perfume and soft as silk, whispered through the intercom. Speak to me, Mark Hensley. Tell me you're sorry. Tell me you'll make it right. The basement key card felt warm, almost feverish, in my pocket, and Clara's ghost gestured once more toward the stairs before dissolving into static that resembled nothing so much as tears. The basement stairs groaned beneath our feet, each step sounding like the cracking bones of some ancient corpse, the echoes swallowed by the oppressive darkness that pressed in from all sides. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of rust and decay, a suffocating blend that clung to my lungs like wet concrete. Ethan Caldwell moved ahead of me, his weathered face grim in the flickering blue glow of the emergency lights, casting grotesque shadows on the damp walls. "Stay close," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the frantic thundering of my heart. "This is where she lives." The basement stretched before us, a maze of rusted pipes and corroded metal, a labyrinthine network of passages that seemed to throb with a dark, malevolent life. The walls wept with condensation that looked disturbingly like tears, and somewhere in the distance, water dripped with the steady, morbid rhythm of a dying heartbeat. Every shadow seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at it. Every corner held the promise of something unspeakable waiting just beyond the edge of sight. My arm throbbed, the mark spreading. The dark veins now consumed most of my forearm like black frost beneath my skin. Each pulse sent waves of cold fire through my bones, and I could feel Evelyn Morse's presence growing stronger with every step we took deeper into her domain. "How much further?" I whispered, dreading the answer even as I needed to know. Ethan Caldwell paused at a junction of corridors, consulting a hand-drawn map that looked as though it had been sketched in haste and fear. "Not far. The ritual chamber is just ahead." His gray eyes met mine, and I saw my own fear reflected back at me. "Remember what I told you. Get to the mirror and smash it. Don't listen to anything she says, no matter whose voice she uses." Corridor A opened into a vast chamber that felt older than the rest of the bunker, as if it had been carved from a different, more ancient stone altogether. The air here was thick with something acrid that made my eyes water and my throat burn, the lingering residue of experiments that should never have been conceived, let alone attempted. Rusted equipment lined the walls like the instruments of some mad surgeon, and in the center of the room, standing like a monument to human arrogance and hubris, was the obsidian mirror. It was beautiful and terrible in equal measure, its surface black as the void between stars, etched with symbols that seemed to writhe and pulse with their own malevolent internal light. The mirror stood 7 feet tall, framed in tarnished silver that had corroded into patterns that were almost painful to look at directly. As we approached, I could feel its pull, a magnetic force that made my mark burn with increasing intensity. "Christ?" Ethan Caldwell breathed, his voice laced with dread. I'd forgotten how it looked. The temperature in the chamber plummeted without warning, our breath forming clouds of vapor that hung in the suddenly frigid air. The emergency lights flickered and dimmed, casting long, distorted shadows, and from somewhere in the darkness came a sound like fingernails dragging across glass, slow, deliberate, predatory, patient. Then Evelyn Morse emerged from the shadows like smoke given form, her wraith materializing in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Her gaunt frame towered above us, impossibly tall and thin, her limbs elongated and distorted, defying human anatomy. Where her eyes should have been were hollow sockets that seemed to drink in the remaining light, and her fingers ended in claws that gleamed like polished bone in the dying fluorescence. "Get to the mirror," Ethan Caldwell shouted, throwing himself between me and the wraith. His voice cracked with strain, but his courage never wavered. "I'll hold her off." The wraith's head turned toward him with the mechanical precision of a predator focusing on its prey, and when she opened her mouth, the sound that emerged was like the screaming of wind through a graveyard, a sound that chilled me to the very marrow of my bones. She lunged forward with inhuman speed, claws extended, and Ethan Caldwell barely managed to dodge aside, pulling the rusted pipe from his belt, a desperate weapon against a supernatural foe. I stumbled toward the mirror, my legs feeling like lead, the key card Ethan Caldwell had given me clutched in my trembling hand. Behind me, I could hear the clash of metal against unholy power, Ethan Caldwell's grunts of effort punctuated by the wraith's inhuman shrieks. The mirror seemed to pulse before me, its surface rippling like black water reflecting a dark and terrible sky. That's when Clara appeared. She materialized beside the mirror, as if she'd been there all along, hidden just beyond the veil of reality, wearing the yellow sundress I'd buried her in, a garment now stained and torn. Her dark hair was longer than I remembered, cascading down her back like a shroud, her face pale as moonlight, and when she smiled, it was with the same warmth that had filled our childhood apartment, a warmth that now seemed tainted and wrong. But her eyes, Her eyes were wrong, black holes that reflected nothing, empty voids that promised only oblivion. "Mark Hensley," she said, her voice soft as silk, sweet as vanilla perfume. A voice that both soothed and terrified me. "You came back to me." The third rule screamed in my mind. Don't speak to the mirror. But this wasn't the mirror speaking. This was Clara, my sister, the person I'd failed to save, the ghost that haunted my waking hours. She reached out her hand, and I could see the needle marks on her arms, dark punctures that wept black fluid down her pale skin, a testament to the darkness that had consumed her. "I've been waiting so long," she whispered, taking a step closer, her eyes never leaving mine. "I've been so cold, Mark Hensley, so alone. All you have to do is speak to me. Tell me you're sorry. Tell me you'll makakang." This was Clara, my sister, the person I'd failed to save, the ghost that haunted my waking hours. She reached out her hand, and I could see the needle marks on her arms, dark punctures that wept black fluid down her pale skin, a testament to the darkness that had consumed her. "I've been waiting so long," she whispered, taking a step closer, her eyes never leaving mine. "I've been so cold, Mark Hensley, so alone. All you have to do is speak to me. Tell me you're sorry. Tell me you'll make it right." Behind me, a strangled cry escaped Ethan Caldwell as the wraith's claws found purchase, tearing across his chest in a sickening sound of rending fabric and worse. Blood splattered against the cold chamber walls, but he fought on, his voice hoarse as he urged me to hurry. Clara Morse's ghost drifted closer, her face etched with a sorrow so profound it felt like a fresh wound to my heart. "You weren't there when I needed you," she lamented, tears tracing paths down her spectral cheeks. "You were too consumed with your work, your contracts, your money. I called you that night, Mark Hensley. I called you so many times." The guilt slammed into me, a physical blow that threatened to buckle my knees. She was right, devastatingly right. I had failed her utterly and completely. I'd been debugging code while she was dying in an alley, chasing another paycheck as the needle found her vein for the last time. The crushing weight of it stole my breath, making each inhale a struggle. "Speak to me," Clara Morse pleaded, her hand outstretched in supplication. "Just say my name. Say you're sorry. Give me the peace I need so desperately." My mouth parted, the words of apology forming on my tongue. But then I heard Ethan Caldwell's voice, weak but resolute. "Don't listen to her, Mark. It's not Clara Morse. It's then Evelyn using her voice, twisting your grief." The truth sliced through my guilt like a shard of ice. This wasn't my sister. This was the wraith, Evelyn Morse, wearing Clara Morse's face as a mask, cruelly exploiting my grief to break the third rule. Clara Morse was gone, had been gone for months, and no amount of speaking to mirrors would ever bring her back or ease the torment of my guilt. My hands, trembling violently, closed around the metal rod we'd brought, and I raised it high above my head. "I'm sorry, Clara Morse," I whispered, not to the phantom before me, but to the memory of my sister, forever etched in my mind. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. But this isn't you." The ghost's face twisted in a paroxysm of rage, Clara Morse's features contorting into something utterly alien and hateful. "You failed me then, and you're failing me now," she shrieked, her voice morphing into Evelyn Morse's, a rasping, ancient sound filled with 60 years of accumulated rage and malice. I brought the rod down with every ounce of strength I possessed. The obsidian mirror shattered with a scream of tortured glass, the sound reverberating through the chamber like a thunderclap. Shards of black glass exploded outwards, each piece catching the harsh glare of the emergency lighting as they scattered across the floor like fallen stars in a dark sky. The instant the mirror fractured, the temperature in the chamber plummeted, and a wind, born from nothing, began to howl through the confined space. Evelyn Morse's wraith convulsed violently, her form unstable, flickering between solid and smoke. She released Ethan Caldwell, who crumpled against the wall, clutching at the bloody wounds on his chest, and turned her full fury toward me, a fury that seemed to warp the very air around her. But already she was fading, her connection to this physical world severed by the mirror's destruction. "This isn't over, Mark Hensley," she hissed, her voice growing fainter with each word, each syllable. The Watcher never truly leaves. With a final, mournful wail that sounded like the death of the wind, Evelyn Morse's wraith collapsed into a swirling, dissipating mist of smoke and shadow, her form dissolving like fog under the relentless gaze of sunlight. The emergency lights flickered and stabilized. The temperature returned to normal, and a heavy, oppressive silence descended upon the chamber, broken only by the ragged sound of our labored breathing. I sank to my knees amidst the shattered remains of the obsidian mirror, suddenly and utterly exhausted beyond measure. The mark on my arm, which had burned like fire throughout the confrontation, began to fade, the dark veins receding like frost melting under the warmth of spring. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Clara Morse's whispers were silent. "Is it over?" I asked, my voice hoarse, looking up at Ethan Caldwell, who was pressing his torn shirt against the wounds on his chest, trying to stanch the flow of blood. He nodded weakly, a ghost of a smile playing across his weathered face. "The mirror's destroyed. She's trapped between dimensions now, powerless. It's over, Mark." We helped each other to our feet, our movements slow and deliberate, and made our way out of the chamber, leaving the scattered remains of the obsidian mirror behind us. The bunker felt different as we climbed the stairs, lighter somehow, as if a weight that had pressed down on it for 60 long years had finally been lifted. The monitoring room seemed smaller and more ordinary, just banks of humming electronics and flickering screens, stripped of its malevolent aura. The drive back to Las Vegas felt like awakening from a terrible nightmare. The desert's endless expanse seemed less menacing now, more indifferent, as if the bunker's pervasive influence had been contained within its cold, concrete walls. Ethan Caldwell rode beside me in silence, his wounds bandaged but not life-threatening. Both of us lost in our own thoughts about the horrors we'd witnessed and somehow survived. "What happens now?" I asked as the distant city lights of Las Vegas appeared on the horizon, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. "Now you go back to your life, Mark Hensley," Ethan Caldwell said quietly, his voice filled with a quiet resignation. "Try to forget, try to move on. The bunker will be sealed off, declared structurally unsafe by authorities who will never truly understand what really happened down there. And hopefully no one else will be foolish enough to break those rules, to tempt the darkness." Back in my apartment, I stood in the bathroom, staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink. The mark on my arm was completely gone, leaving only faint, claw-shaped scars that looked like old, faded wounds. Clara Morse's photo smiled down at me from the shelf above the sink, but for the first time since her tragic death, I didn't feel the crushing weight of guilt when I looked at her face, at her smiling eyes. I had failed her in life, but I hadn't failed her memory, her legacy. I'd resisted the temptation to speak to the mirror, had broken the insidious cycle that might have trapped another unsuspecting soul in Evelyn Morse's web of deceit and despair. It wasn't forgiveness. I knew I'd carry the guilt of my absence forever, a constant reminder of my failure, but it was acceptance, a fragile peace. The whispers were gone, silenced at last. The shadows no longer danced in the periphery of my vision when I wasn't looking. The nightmare was over, or so I desperately wanted to believe. 3 days later, I read in the local paper that Bunker 17 had been permanently sealed by federal authorities, citing structural instability and environmental hazards, burying the truth beneath layers of officialdom. Ethan Caldwell's name was never mentioned in the reports, his bravery and sacrifice buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and official silence, a forgotten hero. But I knew what Ethan Caldwell had done, and I'd carry that knowledge with me always. It wasn't until the following week that I found the shard. I was cleaning the apartment, attempting to reclaim some semblance of normalcy in my life, when I noticed a small, darkened fragment resting on the floor near the bathroom door. Initially, it appeared to be a piece of broken glass, but as I picked it up, that familiar, icy chill snaked its way through my fingers. It was a sliver of the obsidian mirror, no larger than a coin, its surface still bearing the faint etchings of those same ancient symbols that had adorned the larger artifact. Somehow, impossibly, a fragment had followed me home, clinging perhaps to my clothes, or even my skin, carrying with it a mere whisper of the power we believed to be utterly destroyed. As I held it aloft, catching the light, I detected the faintest echo of a voice. Not then Evelyn's this time, but Evelyn Morse's, distant and weak, yet undeniably present. "The Watcher never truly leaves," she rasped. I dropped the shard as if burned, my heart hammering against my ribs, and watched as it skittered across the cold bathroom tiles. For a fleeting moment, just a heartbeat, I believed I saw movement reflected in the cracked mirror above the sink. A flicker of shadow, a glimpse of empty eye sockets staring back at me with predatory hunger. I crushed the mirror shard beneath the heel of my boot, grinding it into dust, but the damage I feared was already done. The seed had been planted, the connection re-established, however tenuous it might be. Evelyn Morse's hold on this world was broken, yes, but not completely severed. Her influence was scattered, but certainly not eradicated. That night, my sleep was haunted by dreams of endless corridor A and flickering monitors, of shadows that danced just outside my vision and doors that swung open of their own volition. And in the depths of that terrifying dreamscape, I heard footsteps echoing through the bunker's depths, new footsteps, belonging to someone else entirely. The cycle would inevitably continue. It always did, because the Watcher, no matter what we do, never truly leaves.